Sun rolling high through the sapphire sky, great and small, on the endless round, summertime.
Hello everybody and welcome to the channel, Bob Sales, this time's next year. So I did in fact not get copyrighted for that beginning, so that is a great start to this video. I am that excited knowing that The Lion King is going to be the third drop on the pencils list. So rather than waiting and having to rush the video, I thought I'd take some time with this one because it's a big story. And personally, it's one of my favourites. The Lion King is definitely one of Disney's best animated films to this day.
To this day!
The film was nearly called King of the Jungle, and I must admit that doesn't quite have the same iconic ring to it, does it? The creators actually realised that lions are not actually found in the jungle, so they changed the name to The Lion King. The animated motion picture was released in 1994. This film was directed by Roger Allers and Rob Minkoff. But of course, this was animated and produced by Walt Disney Studios. The film follows the journey of a young lion named Simba. Simba is born a prince and will someday rule over Pride Rock. His father, King Mufasa, a powerful, firm but gentle leader and a respected one, was betrayed by his own brother Scar. Later on in the story, the king actually died in a very tragic scene. This did in fact make the young and the adults cry alike. It's still one of the most heart-wrenching and tragic scenes in a cartoon. Young Simba was left feeling guilty and responsible for his father's death after being tricked by Scar. So believing he was just that, he decided to run and never look back. In this time, Simba does in fact grow up and he starts to learn to embrace his responsibilities. This does in fact make him go back and reclaim his rightful place as the king of the Pride Lands. Simba's journey is filled with adventures, lessons and memorable characters, such as his friends Timon and Pumbaa, Nala, which I admit I had a weird crush on as a kid. Of course there was Wazoo, and of course you can't forget the baboon. And by the way, all played by a star-studded cast, including this guy. Now the story was actually inspired by multiple different medias and sometimes can vary on who you ask. This included the Bible story of Joseph. This also included Shakespeare's play of Hamlet and from the manga book Kimba the White Lion. So to start off, we have the play Hamlet.
Be or not to be.
The story was in fact near identical, but with humans rather than animals. The young boy Prince is born as royalty, his father is also murdered by his brother for the throne, both are seen as ghosts after death, and both sons return to take their rightful place. So that brings us on to the story of Kimba the White Lion. So I have actually heard of this before this video and before the research, so this actually makes this history a lot more interesting and definitely a lot easier. Disney denied Kimba was one of the movie influences, but it's too hard looking back at the evidence to deny the similarities. First off, this was made by Osamu Tezuka. Now I definitely pronounced that wrong, but if that name does ring a bell, it did in fact make the Astro Boy the original manga books, which of course you would have seen in the Astro Boy history. Osamu actually began his own animated studios in 1962. Mushi Productions. Then he created 30-minute episodes for the Astro Boy the animated series. This was done in the anime style in Japan and first of its kind after World War II, and much needed. NBC was in fact so impressed with Astro Boy they produced it in English. NBC then later commissioned Kimba the White Lion as a co-production with a plan of making an animated film or series. Disney and Astro Boy's creator was in a copyright battle for years. Now the story has similarities, but the story isn't exactly the same. So first off, in Kimbo's story, hunters actually capture his mum before Kimbo's even born. They do actually use this as a trap to trap his dad Caesar, and they actually shoot him dead. Kimbo's mum is captured and put on a boat to ship in the animal trade. She then tells Kimba to escape and save himself, and then she dies. Now believe it or not, she also appears in the sky with the stars, but I mean just take a look at the scene, they're so striking in similarities. There is also a baboon that joins the way, there is an evil king now taking over the land, but what Disney is accused of stealing is the scenes themselves, the animation storyboards. Now it's definitely hard to deny there's so many examples of scenes present in Kimba the White Lion that are remade in The Lion King. This includes Pride Rock itself, the final battle, again the mother in the stars, and they have two laughing hyenas. which of course in Lion King we have 3. But again, they are laughing, cackling hyenas. Also, did you know that Scar's army of hyenas was actually going to be baboons at one point? But although there's similarities, there's definitely big differences. So one of the biggest differences, and probably the weirdest one, Kimba the white lion used his father's corpse to carry on ruling by literally chucking it over his head and tricking enemies into thinking his father was still living. Now thankfully that didn't happen in The Lion King. Even after watching that part in Kimba, it was pretty hard. Kimba even had conversation with his dead father's body. Now we do know that the Astro Boy creator did have meetings with Disney before The Lion King. Some theorised this was going to be a partnership to make a new version or remake the old one, like what NBC did with Astro Boy. Even based off early concept art, Simba was in fact a white lion, but this was changed early on in production. Now this could have been a nod to Kimba for the inspirations, or could have been the fact that Disney was initially planning a remake with Osamu, but that did indeed fall through after his death. In the 1980s, Osamu actually voiced a reluctant dragon on a special Disney production. He actually always loved Walt and what he created. His translator did actually say he met with Disney a number of times over the years. One of the theories is that after the death of Osama, Disney had to make a move. They could either make a film that was going to be highly copyrighted, or they could essentially change some of the characters, some of the scenes, and make a new movie. Which I believe this is what they may have done. On release of The Lion King, at first the new president of Tezuka Company said he was flattered by what Disney had done. He said Osamu would have essentially loved it. But after Disney denying for many years it had no influence from Kimba, the new president wasn't happy. He at least expected a small nod. The founder Osamu actually credited some of his films to the art and work of Disney's Bambi. All the new president wanted was the same treatment back. To make things worse, there was also a copyright battle later on. And no, this was not by Kimba, this was by Disney. Disney did in fact try to take them to court and get a cease and desist order. This was obviously for copyright infringement. No shock, Disney later dropped the case. Now The Lion King was a massive success. It became one of the highest grossing animated films of all time. In fact, it was only later on beaten by, you guessed it, Frozen.
Well, now they know. Let it go, let it go.
This film received critical acclaim for its storytelling, animation and music. The soundtrack alone was a masterpiece. Let's admit it, we all know the songs. And we do know the songs were definitely not stolen from anything else. The music was composed by Hans Zimmer, also featured songs by artists like Elton John and Tim Rice. They of course won multiple awards, including an Academy Award for Best Original Song, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? The film's success led to the creation of a franchise, including sequels like The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, and The Lion King 1.5, as well as a live-action CGI remake in 2019. The Lion King's impact extended beyond the movies, inspiring a Broadway musical that has performed worldwide and won numerous awards itself. In fact, the music from the start of this video was actually that group. So although highly influenced in parts, the songs, the characters, the personalities and art are unique and should still be held up as one of Disney's best animated films. So if you enjoyed the video, please like and share and subscribe. Also comment, it helps me know the channel's going in the right direction.
It's our
free TV philosophy. Hakuna Matata.
And he was a young warthog.
When I was a young what?
Hey, shut up!
Will you not?
So as always, I've been your host Bob Sales. This time next year we will be millionaires at peace.